The sun was merciless that afternoon, beating down on the dusty street where Marcus stood outside the general store, counting what little money remained in his worn leather pouch. $3.42. Not enough for the medicine his daughter needed, not enough for much of anything, really. He'd been working double shifts at the ranch for months, but medical bills had a way of swallowing everything whole. Inside the store, he could hear raised voices. A woman's voice, desperate and pleading, met with the storekeeper's cold refusal. Marcus stepped through the doorway and saw her there, a young woman with tired eyes and a baby wrapped in a faded blanket against her chest. She was trying to buy formula and diapers, her hands shaking as she counted coins on the counter. "I'm $3 short," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, my baby hasn't eaten since yesterday morning." The storekeeper, a man Marcus had never liked much, crossed his arms. "No credit store policy." "You know that, Sarah?" Marcus watched the young mother's shoulders slump, watched a tear slide down her cheek as she began gathering her coins back into her purse. The baby started to cry, a thin, hungry wail that cut through the stale air of the shop. Something inside Marcus shifted, like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. He stepped forward and placed his pouch on the counter. "Add it to mine," he said quietly. "Whatever she needs." Sarah turned to him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I can't let you do that. You don't even know me." "Don't need to know you to know that baby needs to eat," Marcus replied, his weathered face softening into something resembling a smile. "We all need help sometimes." The storekeeper rang up the items with obvious disapproval, and Marcus watched his $3.42 disappear, knowing it meant he wouldn't be buying the pain medication for his daughter's condition today. She'd have to wait another week, until his next paycheck. The thought made his chest tight, but when he looked at Sarah's grateful face, at the baby who had stopped crying, he knew he'd made the right choice. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to repay you." "Don't worry about it," Marcus said, tipping his hat. "You just take care of that little one." As he turned to leave, Sarah called after him. "Wait, please, what's your name?" Marcus Cole." "I'm Sarah Bennett." "And this is Emma." She adjusted the baby in her arms. "Mr. Cole, I promise I'll find a way to repay you. I promise." Marcus shook his head gently. "No need for promises. Just pay it forward someday when you can." He walked out into the blazing afternoon, his pockets empty, but his heart somehow fuller than it had been in months. The walk back to the ranch was long, and with each step, he thought about his daughter, about the choice he'd made, about whether he'd done the right thing. By the time he reached the small cabin he called home, doubt had started creeping in. His daughter Lily was sitting on the porch, her face pale, but her smile bright when she saw him. "Dad, you're back. Did you get the medicine?" Marcus felt the weight of his decision settle on his shoulders. "Not today, sweetheart. Next week, I promise." Lily's face fell for just a moment before she composed herself, always trying to be brave for him. "That's okay, Dad. I can wait." That night, Marcus lay awake, listening to his daughter's labored breathing in the next room, wondering if he'd been a fool, wondering if kindness to strangers was worth his own daughter's suffering. The guilt gnawed at him like a hungry animal. 3 days passed. 3 long days where Lily's condition worsened, where Marcus worked himself to exhaustion trying to earn extra money, where he second-guessed every decision he'd ever made. On the 4th morning, there was a knock at the door. Sarah Bennett stood on his porch, but she wasn't alone. Beside her was an older gentleman in an expensive suit, someone who looked distinctly out of place in their humble part of town. "Mr. Cole," Sarah said, her eyes bright. "This is my father, Richard Bennett. I'd like you to meet him." Richard extended his hand, his grip firm and warm. "Mr. Cole, my daughter told me what you did." "How you spent your last dollars to help a stranger," Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't anything special, sir." "It was to us," Richard said. "You see, I've been searching for Sarah for 2 years. She ran away after a disagreement, too proud to come home. I hired investigators, spent a fortune, but couldn't find her. Until 3 days ago when she finally called me, telling me about a cowboy with a kind heart who reminded her what goodness looked like." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wet with tears. "You showed me that accepting help isn't weakness. That pride shouldn't stand in the way of what's right. You gave when you had nothing, and it changed everything for me. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket. My daughter tells me your little girl needs medicine. Consider this a thank you and an investment. I own several ranches in this territory, and I'm always looking for men of character to help manage them. There's a job waiting for you, Mr. Cole, with a salary that will make sure Lily gets everything she needs. Marcus stared at the envelope, unable to speak. Inside was more money than he'd seen in a year, enough for months of medicine, enough to change everything. I don't understand, he finally managed. Sarah smiled, the same tired young mother transformed into someone radiant with hope. You told me to pay it forward. But sometimes, Mr. Cole, kindness comes back around. You saved my daughter's life that day. Let us help save yours. As Marcus held the envelope, feeling its weight, understanding dawned like sunrise after the longest night. He hadn't just bought formula and diapers that day in the store. He'd bought hope, connection, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness ripple out in ways we cannot imagine. Lily appeared in the doorway, confused by the visitors. Marcus knelt beside her, pulling her close. Sweetheart, he said, his voice breaking with joy and relief, everything's going to be okay now. Everything's going to be just fine. And in that moment, under the endless Texas sky, Marcus understood that sacrifice and reward weren't always separate things. Sometimes they were two sides of the same coin, and sometimes doing the right thing cost everything and gave back more than you ever imagined possible. The cowboy had paid for a stranger, and in doing so, had invested in his own salvation. Life, he realized, had a strange and beautiful way of balancing the scales when you least expected it.